Oh, excuse me. I was just meditating on the deeper wisdom of the dividend discount model. Okay. Let's continue. Because today, oh boy, do we have a treat for you. We're going to take a look at, in my humble opinion, is the most powerful version of the dividend discount model, and that is called the discounted cash flow model. Slide 21. And this model is, at first it looks scary, relax. I mean, just go with the flow, discounted cash flow, and realize that the calculations can be done with a 99-cent calculator. So let's slog forth, realizing that, don't worry, all shall be revealed. You don't have to use math. It's all arithmetic. The value of a stock is equal to the present value of all expected future annual cash flows. So a fancy formula looks like this. Cash flow in year number one, that's what the little one is, and if you're looking at this on your cell phone, you probably can't even see that, divided by 1 plus our required rate of return, the discount rate, our expected rate of return, whatever you want to call it, desired rate. And then in year number two, we take whatever cash flow we receive and divide that by 1 plus rate. But the year number two, we square it. We multiply it times itself. And then in the third year, we take whatever cash flow we receive in that third year and divide that by 1 plus the rate. But this time it's to the third power. So we multiply it times itself 3 times. And so on and so forth, however many years you're going to do. So if we have an example of 3 annual dividends of $10 per share, and then 0 dividends from then on, and our required rate of return was 7%, if we were to do the calculations using exponentiation, and you don't have to do that, we promised you, and we're not going to go back on our promise. We would take $10 divided by $1.07, 1.07. I'm sorry, 1.07, not $1.07, but 1.07. It's 1 plus our required rate of return of 7%. And then $10 divided by 1.07 squared. And then $10 divided by 1.07 to the third power. And if you were to do that, but don't bother doing it because you don't have to, using exponentiation, you'd wind up with $26.24. So we would think the stock was worth $26.24. But how often do companies pay 3 annual dividends and then promptly go out of business? Plus, Payano, we keep using this term present value. What does present value mean anyway? Well, it's yet another example of the words getting in the way, because it has nothing to do with the presents you receive on Christmas or your birthday. Yeah. Slide 22. What is present value? Well, the present value is the value today of a lump sum or a series of payments to be received at some future date. It's the opposite of what is called future value. There are inverse relationships. Did you work on the optional future value calculations in Chapter 1? You didn't have to. They were optional because we saw what compounding, what future value calculations can do when we took a look at how well some of those mutual funds had done. But one of the problems asked us to compound, and that's the verb we use, calculate the future value of $10,000 in 10 years at 10%. There's an exponential formula, but you don't need the exponential formula because we have the future value tables. We looked it up in the future value table, and the future value multiplier was 2.594. Now, you don't have to do it now, but we took the $10,000 today and compounded into the future at 10% for 10 years, and the future value multiplier was 2.594, and we wound up with $25,940. Now, what if we want to do the inverse, the reverse? What if we knew we were going to get $21,589 in 10 years? Oops, that's a mistake. It should be $25,940. I'll change that. I don't know what I was doing. I guess I was playing with the percentage. So that should be $25,940, and it will be by the time you look at it. In 10 years at 10%. See, I did it right over here. So in other words, we knew we were going to get $25,940, or we believed we were going to get that, in 10 years, and our required rate of return, our discount rate, is 10%. There's an exponentiation formula, which you don't have to use. But we look in the present value table, and we find that the present value multiplier for 10 years at 10% is 0.386. Now, don't do it right now. We're going to do it in a bit, so just relax. So we take the 25,940 and we multiply it times the present value multiplier of 0.386, and we wind up with approximately 10,000. Actually, it's a little off because it's only 3 digits of accuracy. If we had 7 digits of accuracy here, then it would be perfect. So present value and future value are just two sides of the same coin. In finance, present value tells us what the future value is worth today. And we compute the present value using a formula or using a process called discounting. That's the verb we use. I know it's kind of dumb. I apologize. Computing the present value is called discounting. You're discounting from the future back to the present. So you might as well get used to it because that's the verb. That's the word that we use in the industry. So get used to it, okay? Going from the present back to the future is called discounting. Going from the future, I said that wrong, I apologize. Going from the future back to the present is called discounting. Going from the present to the future is called compounding. So maybe I want to restart, but you get the idea. There are two sides of the same coin. If we go from the present to the future, that's called compounding. We use the future value table. If we go from the future back to the present, that's discounting, and we use the present value tables, which we'll do in just a moment here. So let's take a look at slide 23. Did the formula for the model scare you with its exponentiation? Well, this formula has the present value calculation built into it. We mortals simply use the present value tables to discount the future annual cash flows, just as if you did in chapter 1 use the future value table. So the formula becomes a lot easier. No division and no exponentiation. We take the cash flow in year number 1 times the present value multiplier, that's what PVM stands for, at year number 1. And then the cash flow of year number 2 times the present value multiplier for year number 2. And the cash flow for year number 3 times the present value multiplier for year number 3. You understand? And then so on and so forth. We use the present value multipliers to discount the future cash flows back to the present. And I know, get used to the words, they get in the way, because the calculations are very simple. Let's take a look at them on slide 24. Let's do the same example over again. Using the present value multipliers from the present value table on the class website, and there it is, dear students, you probably want to print out a copy because it will make life a whole lot easier. If we took our 3 annual dividends of $10 per share and our required rate of return was 7%, we would take $10 times the present value multiplier for year number 1 at 7%, 0.935. And we'll take a look at the table in just a bit. $10 times the present value multiplier for year number 2 at 7%, 0.873. And then $10 times the present value multiplier for year number 3, 0.816 at 7%. That's $9.35, $8.73, and $8.16, which gives us $26.24, which was the same result we got with the formula. What is the present value of the future stream of dividends? Well, at 7% in 1 year that we receive, if we receive $10 in 1 year, today it's worth $9.35. In 2 years, $10 is worth $8.73. In 3 years, $10 that we receive is only worth $8.16. We're discounting that future stream of income. So what would you rather have? $10 in a year or $9.35? They're equivalent. You don't, if your rate of return is 7%. Now, change the rate of return, indeed, and the amount changes. As we said in our previous presentation, the discount rate, the required rate of return, the expected rate of return, the desired rate of return, they all mean the same thing, affects the models greatly. Yes. So now let's take a look on slide number 25 at the table. And we're only looking at a piece of the table here. The present value multipliers come from the present value table on the class website. So for 7%, the first multiplier is 0.935. The second multiplier is 0.873. The third multiplier is 0.816. This is where we got these, right? There they are. $10 times 0.935, $9.35. $10 times 0.873, $8.73. And $10 times 0.816 gives us $26.24. So I told you, folks, it's not hard to do. You don't understand what you're doing yet. You're still having a hard time with the term discount rate and the present value, and those words are stupid, but that's the words we use, so you might as well get used to them. But the calculations are actually very easy. We multiply the cash flow from the dividends in year one by the present value multiplier at 7% for year one. We then did the same for year number 2 and then year number 3. Adding them all together gives us the present value of the future stream of dividend payments. So, slide 26. Let's make it a little more realistic. Our example did not take into account that the stock will still have worth at the end of 3 years unless it goes bankrupt. To make the model more useful, we simply add our predicted market price of the stock at the end of 3 years. We treat the price of the stock at the end of the 3 years as a future cash flow. What did I just say? In other words, look, we bought the stock today. It's given us 3 years of $10 dividends, and then it's worth something at the end of those 3 years, unless the company goes bankrupt. We then look at that worth, that expected stock price, as yet another future cash flow. And we use the present value multiplier for that year, whatever year, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. As with the other dividend discount models, this model is very sensitive to our estimates and our choice of required rate of return, and hence can be very far off the mark. Actually, probably will be very far off the mark. So let's now do it again, but this time in year number 3, we will add the expected price of the stock. So let's do an example. Let's say it's the current price is $125. So today we have to pay $125 for this stock. And we believe we're going to get $10 in year number 1, $10 in year number 2, and $10 in year number 3. So we need to predict the market price at the end of the 3 years. So let's predict 135. Why? I don't know why. We'll take a look why or how later on. But let's just say we believe it's going to be worth $135. So we do the same 3 calculations for the $10 in year number 1, $10 in year number 2, $10 in year number 3. But then we also use the expected price of the stock, in this case $135 at the end of year number 3, to calculate the present value of what that $135 would be. Now, notice that the present value multiplier for the dividend in year number 3 and the expected stock price at the end of year number 3 are the same. Well, of course, we're receiving the dividend in year number 3 and the future cash flow from the stock in year number 3. So we use the exact same multiplier, which is kind of redundant, and we'll fix that in a bit. But our model says that the present value of the future stream of cash flows for this stock is $136.40. The current market price is $125. So you see what the model is saying? The model is saying, you know what? If you require 7% return and you pay $125 for this stock and you get 3 dividends in year number 1, year number 2, and year number 3, and then at the end of year number 3, the stock is worth $135 and we can sell it for $135 as a cash flow, we believe the present value, the value of those future cash flows today is worth $136. So the model is pointing us in this direction. It's saying, this is a potentially good investment for us. Now, do we have any illusion that this is what's going to happen over the next 3 years? No, not at all. We know it's not going to happen. We don't know what the stock is going to be worth in 3 years. We are estimating that. We are guessing. We're putting our finger up in the air and seeing which way the wind blows. But still, it's very powerful. Make sense? Let's take a look at another example now. This is example number 2. Pretzels Unlimited. Pretzels Unlimited is currently selling for $22 and will pay $2 per share in dividends in 2021. PU, that's the symbol for Pretzels Unlimited, expects to increase their dividend to $2.20 in 2022, $2.30 in 2023, $2.30 in 2024, and we will be selling the stock at the end of 2024. We expect the price to be $27 per share at that time. Let's say our required rate of return is 12%. So we go back to the formula and say, okay, what's the discounted cash flow model work? How does it work? We take the present value of all the future dividends, and we take the present value of the price of the stock when we plan to sell. So we changed our required rate of return to 12%, so we're going to have to take a look at the present value table for 12%. And we say, okay, $2 in 2021, $2.20 in 2022, $2.30 in 2023, $2.30 in 2024, and then we expect the stock to be $27. So let's take a look at the present value table. I'm going to run on over to the present value table that's on the class website and run on over to 12%. So there's the present value multiplier for year number 1, 0.893, for year number 2, 0.797, my apologies. Year number 3, 0.712, year number 4, 0.636, and we come back and we see that we took the dividend in year number 1, $2 times 0.893. We took the dividend in year number 2, $2.20 times 0.797. In year number 3, we took our expected dividend of $2.30 times 0.712. And then in year number 4, we took the expected dividend of $2.30 times 0.636. And then we said, look, the stock we expect to be worth about $27, so we use that same present value multiplier. Be careful, because it's the same year, the year number 4. $27 times 0.636. We do all those calculations and we wind up with a stock price that we believe is worth $23.81. Do these calculations, make sure I didn't mess up. Remember, the stock price is $22. We believe that it's worth $23.81 at a required rate of return of 12%. So the model is saying that this is a potentially good investment for us, but it's just the beginning. We've got a whole lot more work to do. Now, let's make it a little easier, in my humble opinion, and by using the table format that we used a couple of slides ago. Because I just think it's a little easier to see, don't you? A little easier to read. You put down the cash flows for the years 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, up to 2024s. We'll take care of that in a second. And then we put the cash flows for $2, $2.20, $2.30, $2.30, and then the $27 of the stock price in the last year. And then we just go through the present value multipliers that we saw here on the table. Here they are, 893, 797, 712, and 636. And now multiply them using a 99-cent calculator. Add them up using that same 99-cent calculator. And it's telling us that it's worth about $23.81. I think it's much easier to comprehend and calculate in this format, yes? And let's simplify it a little bit, because why are we doing 2 calculations for the same year? Let's make it a little easier by adding the dividend in year number 4 to the expected stock price in year number 4 and coming up with this value, $29.30. So it just saves us a couple of manual operations. But more importantly, dear students, it allows us to use a special spreadsheet function to calculate the internal rate of return. Huh? What's the internal rate of return? Well, it's what these numbers are telling us we're going to get. If we get these dividend cash flows and the stock is indeed worth $27 in 4 years, the internal rate of return is a measure of what rate of return we expect to get from those cash flows. But it's a little tricky. We have to include the positive cash flows, which we've been looking at. We also have to include any negative cash flows. What's that? Money we have to pay. In other words, we didn't get the stock for free. Someday, when you take an upper level or a graduate finance or investment class, you will learn how to manually compute internal rate of return. And hopefully you will not have a sadistic professor who will require you to calculate it manually more than once. It's not really that hard. It just takes a lot of time because you're basically making guesses and going back and forth until you finally get it right. And that's why we have computers. We are simply going to enter the numbers into a spreadsheet formula and press the enter key. That's what we're going to do. Now, some of you are going to say, well, I'm not using a spreadsheet. Don't worry. They're already there. They're already built for you. In other words, we required a 12% rate of return from Pretzels Unlimited. But the numbers are telling us we're going to get something better than 12%. And that's the internal rate of return calculation. So here is the spreadsheet formula. If you've used this spreadsheet, this shouldn't look too scary. But if you haven't, then yeah, you can think of a spreadsheet like a big bingo calculator, right? These cells, B3 to B, so we'll see in a minute. The spreadsheet formula is equal signs IRR for internal rate of return, and then the block of cells containing the cash flows, both positive and negative. You got to use the negative ones, or else you'll get it'll say, no, I can't do this. And then you put in approximate rate of return. Now, we put in 12%. You could just leave it 0, and the computer will do its best to figure out the result. So here's the same spreadsheet, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, with the cash flows. But notice, in year 0, meaning today, right now, we have to pay $22 for the stock. That's why it's negative. That's a negative number. The spreadsheet shows it in parentheses because that's what accountants use. So we type in the formula, internal rate of return equals IRR, open parentheses, B2, this is B1, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's A, column A. B2 to B5, and that's the block of cells, comma, and then we could leave it at 0, and the spreadsheet will do its best to figure it out. Or we put in what we think it is, which is 12%. Make sense? Now, we could look at the example spreadsheet on the class webpage if you'd like. Oh, why don't we do that in the face-to-face class? But there's a commentary and the spreadsheet. So you go look at that separately, okay? Because it looks funny because of the way the Camtasia grabs the screen. So you look at that in the presentation on the spreadsheet. There's a presentation on the spreadsheet itself. But it's very simple, folks, and it's already done for you. You just type in the cash flows for the years, and boom, it'll do it for you. But it really does, if you're going to get involved in finance, a spreadsheet is a wonderful tool to learn how to use, and you don't have to pay tremendous amounts of money to some unnamed, ugly company based in Seattle called, well, they're unnamed, so we won't save them. We won't even mention them. Go to Google Docs, it's free. Go to LibreOffice, it's free. OpenOffice, it's free. And it works just as well, in my humble opinion. Slide number 3. I'm sorry, 33. Genes are us. Symbol GRUS. You've heard of them, right? You've heard of what the one chromosome said to the other chromosome? Do these genes make me look fat? See what you're missing in the online class? The Genes Are Us. This is a biotech company that's based here in San Diego that's going to change the world or go bankrupt trying to do it. And they're currently selling for $21 per share. They pay no dividends. We believe that Genes Are Us will sell for around $50 per share in 5 years. Our required rate of return is 13%. So how can we determine if this is a potentially good investment? Well, look, they're losing money. They're not paying any dividends. If they get the drug approved, they're going to be fabulously wealthy. But right now, there's nothing we can... Well, yes, we can. With no dividends, which model can we use? We can still use the discounted cash flow model. I told you it was the most powerful, in my humble opinion. So if you recall, the formula is the value of the stock is equal to the present value of future dividends plus the present value of the price of the stock when you plan to sell. Well, what's the present value of nothing? Of zero dividends? Zero, right? So that side of the formula just becomes nothing, zero. You can even just cross it off. But do we believe it's going to be worth in 5 years? We believe it's going to be worth $50. So we would go to the present value table, and let's go to the present value table, at 13% for 5 years, and that's 0.543. And so we multiply the $50 times 0.543, and we get a present value of $27.15. So the model is telling us that we believe the stock is actually worth $27 and it's selling for $21. Do you see how different a stock this is from the ones we've looked at before? You see how speculative it is? No dividends, no earnings, probably. We didn't say that in the model, but in the example here, but probably no earnings. This is the kind of stock, folks, that can turn 1,000 into 10,000 into 50,000, or it could turn $10,000 into 50 cents. And we're not trying to say you should never invest in a company like this, but we are very determined to help you have your eyes wide open when you see a stock like this, so that you will know that, you know what, this is real dicey. This is not a Pretzels Unlimited that's been around since the 1930s making baked goods. This is Genes Are Us, which may change the world and cure cancer or hoarseness or baldness or whatever, but it might not. And this is the kind of company that I was a sucker for, folks, 20 some odd years ago. Because biotechnology it's going to happen, folks. It's just taken a lot longer than they ever thought. It's going to change the world more than the internet, more than computers and telecommunications, because we're going to cure cancer. It's that simple. They're working on it now, folks. CAR-T. Look it up. C-A-R capital dash smaller case T. I don't know why. I forget what it stands for. But it's brilliant. It's unbelievable. They take your killer T cells or whatever they're called, the leukocytes or lymphocytes, and they play with CRISPR, which is the technology that allows them to goof with the genes, and teach your cells that the tumor that is killing you is a foreign body, because cancer is pretty smart. Cancer goes, ooh, we're part of the body, don't bug us. And the immune system says, all right. But now your immune system has been told, no, that's the enemy. Go get them. And they put the stuff back in you, put the genes, the blood back in you, and you get far sicker than you've ever been in your life. The worst cold you can imagine. Well, that's your immune system kicking in, saying, holy smokes, we gotta give this tumor the heave-ho, and you're sick for 2 weeks, and then you feel sick. You feel the symptoms. And then the tumor's gone. It's happening, folks. Now it's taken longer than people thought, but it's going to happen. So there you go. I'm really positive on, I just don't know which one, right? That's the problem. You don't know who it is. But you see how we can now use the discounted cash flow for these speculative stocks. Slide 34. Let's apply the two spreadsheets to Jeans or Us. If the current market price is $21, we expect the stock price to be $50 in 5 years, paying no dividends. Well, here's our present value calculation. $0 of dividends, zip, 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 zip. And then in the 5th year, we take $50 and multiply it times the present value multiplier, which we already saw for 5 years at 13% was 0.543. And that gives us a present value of $27.15. Now, do we have to do all these no, we can just do the calculation in the last year. But it's just showing you what's going on, that's all. There's nothing until the last year, and hopefully something, not 50 cents, $50. But the internal rate of return spreadsheet, we do have to put in all the zeros. We can't bypass that. It has to be done. You have to put in the initial cash flow, initial cash outflow, how much it costs you to buy the stock, and then the zeros, and then the $50 that we expect to get at the end of the 5 years, and put in the internal rate of return of B2 to B7, and then we put in a guess of 13%. But the numbers, if we indeed get $50 in 5 years, this is going to return almost 19%, folks, annually, which is pretty darn good. But it could also, yes, make us very sad, and sometimes you wins and sometimes you don't win with these speculative stocks. Why is it so important? Well, for a couple reasons. First of all, I firmly believe this will help you become a successful, prudent, long-term investor, assuming the world doesn't end, and choose companies that won't make you rich overnight, but should make you rich. But more importantly, it's bad for my self-esteem if you don't learn how to do these. Look, you can't leave BUS123 without knowing how to compute the Gordon growth model and the discounted cash flow model. You understand? And I know there are certain students who just look at it and go, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to do it. It's math. I don't want to do it. And I just get so exasperated, and I plead and beg, because it's going to be on exam number 2, and then it's going to be exam number 3, it's going to be exam number 4, and the final exam, so you might as well learn them now. And contact me for help. Haven't you figured this out yet? I live, sleep, breathe this, eat this stuff. So I'm very happy to help you. That's why we get paid the big bucks. Anyway, learn how to do these. They're not hard. The words get in the way, but you do the calculations a few times and you go, this isn't that hard. Okay, thank you. Enough. Okay, I feel better now. All right, so you think these are the only models out there? Wrong. There are many. Residual income model that uses earnings instead of dividends, and free cash flow model, which is actually a little bit better than the residual income model because earnings are not always what they seem to be. The price ratio models, which not that great, actually. I'm not a big fan of those. But there are many valuation models. Hopefully by the end of the semester, by the end of your study here, we will have put together a presentation on the Better Investing Stock Selection Guide, because that's a very cool model, and they're part of the investment clubs, the national groups. The takeaway is that you have the rest of your investing career to explore them. But if you find one that is good or is better than the discounted cash flow model, please contact me, okay? Okay. Slide 36. Okay, Piano, this is all great, but just where are we supposed to get all this historical information anyway? And just who decides what next year's earnings or dividends per share, the dividend growth rate, what are going to be, let alone the expected price of a stock in 3, 4, or 5 years? Well, before the internet, should we call it BI, this information was not readily available. Normally, you would ask your broker for it, or you would use one of the securities industry's trusted information sources. And traditionally, the most respected source, and certainly I personally respect it above many others, is and was, was and is the value line. And when we come back, dear students, we will we'll have our final presentation of this chapter concentrating on the value line and how we can use it to make decent estimates of what's going to happen in the future, realizing that, we really don't know. Neither does the value line. See you in our next presentation and final presentation on using the value line to get information for our models.